All right. Hello, hello. Hello and welcome. Can everyone hear me okay? Hello and welcome. Welcome to today's webinar. Really excited to be here with you today. How exciting. What a wonderful thing it is for us to be together. Just to get some Zoom engagement, just if you could quickly stick in the chat comments. If everyone knows how to use the chat, if you look down the bottom, you'll see the word chat. Click on that chat. And just in your chat comments, just write down how you're feeling. How's everyone feeling today? How are we? Are we excited? Are we ready to go? Are we pumped? We're ready for a fantastic webinar. Wonderful. We've got a good from Eve. Thank you, Eve. Thank you very much. We've also got amazing, awesome from Deneen. Alvira said, great and ready for new info. Excellent. Wonderful. You're in the right place. Just let me know, whereabouts are you from? Whereabouts are you from? Which city are you dialing in from? Just like I said, just to get a bit of engagement, we've got Delaware. Who's from Delaware? Deneen's from Delaware. Alison from the Gold Coast. Wonderful. Close to home for me. Washington. Asma from Washington. Sugesh from Pennsylvania. Wonderful. Wonderful. Nice to have you all here today. Now, there's several reasons why people would come to a webinar like this one. Well, first of all, you might have read in the comments that it's high energy. It absolutely is going to be high energy. And so I'm going to need you to get on your running shoes or your exercise equipment or something along those lines, because what we want to do is we want to make sure that we've got energy in our body, not just in our mind. Now, it's true that our mind and our thoughts really affect us. It is very true. However, what I've discovered is that what will affect you the most is the way you use your body, your physiology. And so what I'd ask you to do is when I ask you to be engaged physically, I would ask you to do so. Just by way of introduction, my name is Joshua Roy, and I'm a seminar leader and life coach. I've been running seminars now for the last 7 years. And over that period of time, I've conducted more than 1,000 one-on-one life coaching sessions. And also over that same period of time, I've also conducted more than 300 webinars like today's webinar. So I'm no amateur to this. This is something that I do for fun. It's something that I love to do. And it's something that I learn from each time that I do it. One way that I've discovered to keep myself improving is by constantly upgrading my content and constantly putting myself out there and sharing the information. It's true that you can learn a lot through reading books, through watching YouTube videos, through watching other people's performances. You can learn a great deal. However, when you become a teacher, you learn things at a different level. And so I'd encourage you that if you're listening today for yourself, that's a start. Also listen for another person in your life. Think about how this information that I'm sharing today is relevant for somebody else that you can then go and share with. Share with them the information. What will happen is when you become the teacher, the grooves will go deeper into your mind and you will get change at a deeper level. So I'd encourage you to think along those lines. So really think about how you can improve the life of another person with your knowledge, with your love. Now, there's several reasons why somebody might turn up to a relationship, or not a relationship course. This can certainly help you with your relationships, but a course such as this one, one of the reasons is that your life isn't working. Just drop a yes in the comment if there's some area of your life that's not working right now. There's something perhaps it's finances, perhaps it's your relationships, but there's something that's not working. And you would like to know, what is it? What is the key? What is the principle that's going to help that area of life accelerate? How can I get success in that part of my life? So that's one of the reasons why you might be here, because you want to elevate an area of your life. Now, another reason why you might be here is, let's say everything's working pretty well. You're actually on the right track. You're moving, but you'd like to accelerate your progress. So just drop a yes in the comments if you're somebody who would like to, things are working, things are going great, but you just like that extra boost to accelerate your life. So if that's you, drop a yes in the comments. And so that's really the two camps of people. One is that something's not working. I want to fix something. I want to make it right. The other camp is, well, things are working. My life is great, but I don't want great. I want phenomenal. And so really they're the two camps. Now, other people may be here because simply they're curious. They're curious about what is going to be shared. What is this topic all about? What am I going to take into my life that's going to revolutionize the way that I see things, the way that I interact with others, and my life as a whole? For whatever reason you're here, the purpose you're here, I want to thank you for being here. I really do want to thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Thank you for putting aside this time and thinking to yourself that you want to improve an area of your life. That's one thing that I'm looking for. I'm only interested in people who really want to improve their life. Those that want to sit in a hole and wallow in their misery, they can stay there. They can enjoy that all they want. But for you, because you're here, that tells me that you're somebody special. You're somebody who wants to take more control of your life. And you're in the right place. That's exactly what we'll be doing today. Now, further by the way of introduction, just so you have a better idea of who's speaking to you, like who is this guy? How is he going to help me how to change or improve my life? Look, he's only fairly young. I'm just about to be a grandfather, so I'm not that young. I may look younger, but I'm going to be a grandfather in about 10 days. So I'm really excited about that. There's some new developments happening in my family. One thing I want to let you know is that when I was young, I started looking into this idea of personal development. Who started looking into personal development when they were young? Anybody here like that? Some people wait till they're a bit older, but some people look into it while they're young. And as a teenager, I would sit in the back seat of my car, my parents' car, and I would listen to Zig Ziglar, and I would listen to Charles Tremendous Jones, if any of you have heard of these old names. I would listen to Jim Rohn. You see, my father was into personal development. He wanted to improve the quality of his life, and he believed that the way to do that was to get these gems of wisdom from people in the know, from someone who already has success, and learn from them. And so I would listen in the back seat and listen to all these motivational speakers. And the information started trickling into my mind back then. Now, as a teenager, my father took me along to a seminar when I was just 16 years old. No, I was younger than that. I was 14 years old. This seminar was called The Mind and You. And as I sat there listening to the seminar leader, who was an ex-school teacher who believed that he could help people more by teaching them about the mind, in this seminar called The Mind and You, he taught me something phenomenal. He said that I was born with 12 to 14 billion brain cells. But he said that what most people do is they focus on lack and limitation. And most people don't tap into this abundance that they have, the ability to create their life at a phenomenal level. He described it this way. He said, it's like having $1 million in the bank, and all people do is they go and get 10 cents out every now and then. It's like having tables filled with mouth-watering succulent food, and yet all people do is they go and get the crumbs off the ground. He said people are not tapping their full ability. Now, when he said this, he had my attention. And I started to wonder how. You've probably heard before from the Stanford Institute and from other institutes that we only use about 10% of our brain. In fact, further studies have suggested that we use about 1%. Now, this is not entirely accurate. We actually use 100% of our brain. There is electricity moving through your entire brain. However, the potential of the brain is what we're limited in. We're only using this very small potential. You see, you and I have 10 by 10 by 9 potential connections in our brain. I mean, that's a number that's almost too big to fathom. 10 times 10 times 9. We start getting a huge number of potential connections. So if you were born with 12 to 14 billion brain cells, and every one of them brain cells can connect with potentially 10 to 12 other billion brain cells, then we have a number that's almost unlimited, the potential connections in your brain. The thing that makes a person more or less intelligent is not the number of brain cells. Rather, it's the number of connections between brain cells. So if we want to increase our intelligence, if we want to increase our success in life, then what you and I need to focus on is creating more connections in our brain. Then the question becomes, well, how do we do that? We went to school. Isn't that how you do it? You learn through school learning. Now, let's think about the way that we learned at school, just for a moment. As a young person, you went to school, you probably were told to go and sit at your desk. And you probably sat at your desk for hours on end every single day. And as you sat at your desk, learning was done to you. A teacher, a person in the know, would be there with a book or with just their raw knowledge, and they would impart that wisdom to you. And your job was to sit there and absorb. That was your job. That was school. Now, who found themselves bored at school? Just by a yes in the comments or hands up, who found themselves bored at school? Whoever felt like they were sitting there and this is just terribly boring? Most people do. Many people felt like this way of learning, using the old, what's called the Prussian system, was very difficult for us to learn the way that we're meant to learn. You see, studies have shown us that children in multilingual neighborhoods can learn 2, 3, or even 4 languages, and they do it effortlessly and easily. All they're doing is playing with their friends, having a good time, and the learning is happening. You see, when you were young, when you were a young child, your brain was like a sponge, just soaking up the world around you. Yet as we've got older, that learning ability has, to some degree, slowed down. And it's slowed down unless we can tap in to our childlike curiosity, unless we can tap in to the way we used to learn as children. And so part of what I'm here today to talk about is how you and I do that. How do we become like little children? How do we tap into the ability that little children have to learn rapidly, to learn vast amounts of information in an extremely limited amount of time? So think about that for you and the why we want to learn this. The reason why is, and let's think about this, if you're able to accelerate your learning, you can accelerate your intellect, accelerate your success, accelerate your relationships, your finances, your health, accelerate every part of your life. And it all starts here. So by way of introduction, and just so that you know, I started off listening to those talks in my father's car. Now, as I went through life, I found that there were successes and also failures, just as you have found. I found that there are good times and there's also heartbreaks. There's heartaches that happen. And there's situations that we're forced to go through which are not happy situations. And so we've got to drag out resources or find resources that we never knew we had. We have to build resilience. We have to work through these issues. Now, it's at those times, it's at those difficult times that we start to realize that we can deal with more than we ever thought possible. Who's ever done that? Who's been through a hard time and at the end of it, you found out that you had resources within yourself, emotional resources that you never knew you had? Who's there? Who knows what I'm talking about? You find something deep and you're able to pull that out and you're able to get through the situation and not just survive, but to thrive. You don't just survive the situation, you come through stronger than you were before. Who's also been to other situations where you felt like it's overwhelming, it's knocked you down, and afterwards you felt like your confidence was lower, it was decreased? Who's ever felt that? Now, what's the difference? Well, some things we win and some things we lose. We know that. We know that. However, you and I get to choose our response to every emotionally difficult situation that we face. We get to choose our response. We get to choose how we will show up emotionally every single day. every single day of our life. We get to choose how we'll show up. Now, this became evident to me when I went through a divorce. It was a difficult time for me. I had 3 young children. It was back in 2004, and we parted ways. My ex-wife and I saw things differently. We saw the world differently. She left me as a single dad looking after 3 children, and she ran off. She did what she wanted to do for a period of time. And it was really tough. It was one of the most difficult times in my life to be rejected by a person that you felt knew the best. And I felt, this person, she knows me and she's rejecting me. That hurts. Who's felt rejected? Who's felt the pain of rejection? Who's felt like someone who you thought cared about you, you thought loved you, gave you everything that you thought that you wanted or needed, and suddenly they withdrew that and they took it away from you, and you felt that pain, that hurt? That's exactly where I was. Now, in this situation, I, like you, had 2 choices, and I chose the latter choice, and I know you have too. The reason I know that is you are here. You are here, which means you want to progress. And by that very idea that you want to progress, you believe that you can overcome any situation, circumstance, or trial that you face. You believe that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be here learning this material if you didn't believe that you could overcome the challenges of your life. Now, that was me. Here I am. I'm born with 12 to 14 billion brain cells. I've now gone through a difficult time. I've been rejected. I've had my heart ripped out. I'm hurting. I'm in pain. What do? Do I sit and wallow in misery, or do I dust myself off and do I keep going? Now, I chose the latter. And what helped me through was I attended a seminar. Back in 2015, I went along to this seminar. I was sick for 2 weeks before the seminar. I had emotional turmoil in my life. I was at one of the lowest points in my life. I don't know if you can relate to that, but has there been a really low point in your life where you just feel like you can't get out of bed? You want to create a cocoon of pillows and just stay there in that comfort of your bed? Who's ever felt that way? You ever felt that way? Just raise your hand and say yes. You felt that. Good one. Excellent. Thanks, Sharon. I'm watching Sharon on the screen and she's really animated and she's involved. So I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. So if you felt that way, that's what was going on. That's what was going on in my life. I'm in this dark place. I'm hurting. There's emotional pain and turmoil. Now, I went along to this seminar and everything changed. Now, this was a high energy seminar. And I learned something so valuable. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So I'm going to go straight into the teaching today. We're going to go straight into content. Who wants content? Who came here not just to talk about these ideas, but actually to learn it? And not just to learn it, and not just to get information, but to translate that information into knowledge. You see, knowledge is not about information. It's about application. It's about applying the things that we learn. Because there are many things that you know. I could ask you questions. There would be so much knowledge in this group. But is it knowledge or is it just information? You see, if you're not using it, if you're not applying it, that's not knowledge. You might know about something, but unless you're doing it, you don't know it. You don't know it. When you live it, when it's inside you, when it's in the cells of your body, when it's part of you, that's when you know it, because you're living it. It's in your walk, it's in your talk, it's in your breath, it's in the cells of your body. It's inside you. And that's what we want to do with this. We want to take this information and we want to somehow get it from the mind into the heart, and then from the heart into the hands, so that it becomes part of who you are. That's really what we're doing today. So I went through that deep, dark time. I went to this seminar. I got lifted out of that. I believe that if I did a few things each morning, and I'm going to talk about these today, I believe that I would right all the wrongs. I believe that I would start taking control of the emotions that I was running, because at that time I was in depression. I was feeling sad, miserable. I call it a circumstantial depression because of the situation, or a situational depression. And I had this situation that was so depressing that I didn't know how I was going to pick myself up by the bootstraps. And yet I started a morning routine. I started a little practice and I started changing my life. And now today I've dedicated my life to helping other people do the same. So I'm here to tell you today that if you've ever felt low, if you've ever felt down, if you've ever felt completely depressed or lost or upset or hurt, that there is a way out, that you don't need to sit in that cocoon of misery, that you can actually claw your way out. It is possible. And not only is it possible, I know it can be done because I've done it. And I know that many of you have done it in parts of your life. What we want to do is we want to expand that to every area of our life. And the way we do that is by understanding the principles that will help you to climb and claw your way out of that deep, dark place. So if you're interested in that, if that sounds like a great thing, if you'd like to take your mood from wherever it is right now and elevate it to something greater, then go ahead, raise your hand and say yes. Now, even if I can't hear you, even if your camera's off, just raise your hand and say yes. Because by doing that, you're showing me and you're showing yourself that you're actively involved. You're not just wanting to, participate here by way of listening, but you want to actively involve yourself in the learning process. So let's actively involve ourselves in this. Actively involve yourself. So when I ask you to do something, just do it. Just do it. I'm going to ask you a bit later to jump up and down a little bit. Now, if you're physically capable, I'd ask you to do that, because what we want to do is get some energy in our body, because energy, motion creates emotion. And if you want a better emotion, you've got to use your body. You've got to use your body. So I'd like to thank you all for being here once again. And let's get straight into the training today. So the first part of the training is this, is that there is a pathway for you and I to move down. When I was young growing up, I would go and attend church. Who here? How many churchgoers have we got? How many people used to go up and they went to Sunday school? Mum and Dad took you along to Sunday school and you learned from church. Well, there's a lot of good things I learned from church. There's a lot of good teachings in that organization that I went to. And one day when I was along there, I heard this thought. And I want you to think about this. It goes like this: sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character, and sow a character, reap a destiny. Let's go through and have a look at that, because this to me was life-changing back then. However, this is nothing of what I know now. So this is basically step one. We're taking baby steps here, but I'm going to show you how this all works. So what we've got thoughts to begin with. So what do thoughts lead to? Well, if you sow a thought, the idea is, here we are, we're a farmer. You go out and you put a seed in the ground, and let's say you put an apple seed in the ground. Well, what's going to form is an apple tree if that seed germinates and it has sunlight and water and all that it needs, oxygen. We know that that new plant will form. Well, in the same way, we're sowing thoughts. And if our thoughts are thoughts of positivity or thoughts of happiness or thoughts of creation, if we're sowing empowering thoughts, we're going to get what type of action? We're going to get empowering actions. And so a lot of people are wanting to change their life. However, they've got stinking thinking. That's what I call it, stinking thinking. And if you've got stinking thinking, it's very difficult to be empowered. In fact, you're more likely to be disempowered. And Einstein said that most people walk around in a trance of disempowerment. That's what they walk around in. They don't believe it's possible for them. Or maybe somebody else could do something great, but not for me. Not realizing that you were born with the same amount of brain cells as Einstein was born with. Now, if Einstein can be incredibly intelligent and be who he was, why not you? Now, we also learn that we're boxed in by the boundary conditions of our thinking. Think about that for a moment. We're in a box. You and I live in a box, and we're boxed in by our thoughts, by our thinking. If we could change our thinking, we could certainly get different actions. So if you're not happy with the life that you're living right now, the answer lies in your thinking, because your thoughts precede your actions. You won't get an action unless you first planted a thought, because just like that apple tree grows from that apple seed, your actions grow out of your thinking. And so if you're not getting the results that you want to have a look at that, the actions. But before the actions is your thinking. Now, let's say you are empowered. You're incredibly empowered. You're living a fantastic life. Money's rolling in. Relationships are going great. Everything's wonderful. That's because of your thinking has led to the actions that have created that. You create your world. You create it either through your actions or your non-actions. You're creating your life. You're creating the results. And if you're getting positive, good results, that's you. That's your thinking. Now, after actions, we create habits. You see, when you sow an action, when you repeat an action over and over again, it turns into a habit. Now, this can work in both positive and negative, because some of our habits are very empowering. They're positive in our life. They're doing you wonders. They're wonderful. However, some of your habits are disempowering, the negative. They're dragging you down. In fact, some of you have time-wasting habits. Too many computer games. Too much wasting time watching Netflix binging, they call it. So we've got habits that can actually be detrimental to the quality of our life long term. We've got habits of eating. Maybe you've got habits where you eat fast food because it's quick and easy, rather than having that home-cooked meal with the fruit and the vegetables and the salad, the veggies and salad that we need, that our body needs for good nutrition, for strong and healthy cells. We know this, and yet sometimes we get into habits that are disempowering. Who knows what I'm talking about? Who's got some habits in their life that they'd like to alter, they'd like to change? They're not really empowering. You're not living the life you really, truly desire because you've got these rotten habits. And some of these habits, the formation of them might have been when you were really young, when you were a small child, and you absorbed the world around you, including the habits, both good and bad, of your parents, of your parents, or your primary caregiver. So you just absorbed those and you took on some of those habits. Look at habits in our life. Now, so a habit, if you run a habit consistently, that turns into a character. Character is who you are. Are you happy? Are you proud of who you are? Are you a good person? Do you love other people? Do you care about others? Or have you become hardened, disgruntled? Have you become angry? Are there people that frustrate you that you won't give them a time of day? We've got to think about the character. Who are we in the end? And is it serving us? Is it creating happiness? So character can be good or bad, or usually a bit of both. And so what we'll find and what you'll find in your life, if you've got habits that you like about your life that are actually leading to success, and you may have a couple of habits that you'd like to get rid of. You may have characteristics, part of your character, that you really like about yourself. And there's another couple of things you'd like to get rid of, that you'd like to augment or change. Now, whatever character you have and whatever you're sowing, when it comes to character, you reap a destiny. I like to call it your eternal destiny. This is your future, your destiny. Now, why do we need to know about this? Well, the reason we need to know about this is that if you understand this, then you can understand that your thoughts control everything. That if you want to change your destiny, you don't work on creating new habits. You don't work on creating a new character, but you go back to your thinking and you go down to ground roots and you start saying, well, how do I control my thinking? If I can think in more positive, empowering ways, then I can have a more empowering life, which can get me more empowering results, which will lead to the destiny that I desire. So the reason we want to know this is we want to know where it all starts. But it doesn't start there. You see, a lot of people think, well, it starts with the thinking. Where else could it start? It's all in your mind. It's all in your thoughts. That's true. And I believed this for many years. I believed it all started with my thinking. And so I thought, okay, Josh, we've got to think more positively. Now, how do I do it? So I'd go about my day and suddenly I'd be thinking negatively. And I'd say, well, don't think negatively, think positively. And so I'd start thinking positively again. But then something would happen. Then I would lose something. Then something in my life wouldn't work. I would lose some money or make a bad investment decision. And then suddenly I was thinking bad. I'm thinking negative. I'm thinking all these rotten thoughts about myself. I've got this negative self-talk in my head that tells me I'm unworthy, I'm not good enough, and if I'm not good enough, I won't be loved. And so I've got these thoughts in my mind. Who's had those thoughts? Just put your hand up if you can resonate with that. If you can think that there are times in your life that you thought, I'm unworthy, I'm not good enough, I can't do it. If you've had those thoughts, then you're in good company, because guess what? We all have them. It's the natural condition of life to have these types of thoughts. And if you've had them, there's nothing wrong with you. If you've had these thoughts, you're completely normal. Those thoughts are absolutely normal because we have an unconscious mind that is there to protect us, keep us safe. And the way that your mind, your unconscious mind, keeps you safe is by pointing out what's wrong. Everything that's wrong in the world. What could kill me? What could cause me pain? What's going to hurt me? And every one of those things, your unconscious mind, the job of the unconscious mind is to keep you safe from all of that so that you stay alive. That's the job of the unconscious mind. Now, notice there, I didn't say the unconscious mind's job was to make you happy, because it's not. The unconscious mind does not have a job that includes happiness. It has nothing to do with the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind is about beating your heart 100,000 times a day, because that keeps you alive. Your unconscious mind is about your next breath, because breathing keeps oxygen moving through your system, energizing the cells of your body. Therefore, breath is an important part of staying alive. Therefore, you don't have to think about it consciously. Your unconscious mind does that work for you. And it's only there, it's only designed for survival. That's the whole purpose of your unconscious mind. Grow your hair, grow your fingernails, keep your heart beating, keep every cell in your body reproducing. We know that our cells reproduce themselves, that every 3 to 5 days you've got new eyes, but every 2 to 3 days, actually, your eyes. You've got a new stomach lining every 5 days. You've got new skin every about 2 or 3 months. We're constantly renewing ourselves. And this is all the work of the unconscious mind. And the unconscious mind has one purpose: keep you alive. That's it. That's the start, the finish, the alpha and the omega of the unconscious mind. That's the whole purpose, is keep you alive. Happiness, on the other hand, is up to you. That's up to you to consciously choose it. It's up to you to use your neocortex, or even more particularly, use the executive functioning part of the neocortex, which in some class of thinking, they refer to it as the third eye, to use that to create happiness. So happiness is your job. Now, looking at this, if we can't control our thoughts just by thinking, what controls your thoughts? You see, I tried it for many years. I tried to control my thoughts by thinking. And whenever I was focusing, whenever I was reading something, whenever I was consciously focusing on something positive, I could stay positive. But the minute I stopped focusing on something positive, I would slip back to stinking thinking. Who knows what I'm talking about? Who's done that? Who's read a positive book and felt really positive for a day or even a couple of days or a week? And then after that, you slip back into survival mode. You slip back in that old way of being, where those old thoughts came home to roost. Who's had that experience? And you think to yourself, why didn't it last? What's happening? Why didn't these thoughts last? Because here's the reason. Because you can't change your thoughts by thinking about them. You cannot change your unconscious thoughts by thinking about them. You cannot do it. And so you say, well, Josh, how do I do this then? How do I get down to a new destiny if I can't change my thinking by thinking about it? What we're going to do is we're going to realize where our thoughts come from. So the question is this: what creates your thinking? Have you asked yourself that? What creates my thinking? What creates thought? Well, we know it's electricity in our brain. We know that there's light that travels through. They've looked under a microscope at the brain. We know there's neurological connections in our brain. There's synapses or synaptic connections. We know there's chemical reactions. So there's a whole lot happening in our brain, a whole lot happening. What controls your thoughts? What makes you think something? What creates the thinking? So the answer is this. Actually, just write down in the comment, who thinks they know the answer? What creates it? What creates your thinking? What precedes thought, if anything? I like it. Okay, so Tanya knows this. Tanya, you've been here before. Okay, so what we've got here is up above thoughts, we've got emotion. And you might say, hang on, Josh, I create my emotions through my thinking. For example, if I think about a happy time, I can feel happy. If I think about a sad time, I feel sad. If I think about a euphoric time, I feel excitement. That is all true. Your thoughts do impact your emotions. That is correct. However, your emotions also impact your thoughts. Let me explain this. If you've got a happy emotion in your body, what thoughts are you going to have? Just write down in the comments what thoughts you have. If you've got a happy emotion in your body, what sort of thoughts would you be thinking as a result of that happy emotion? What sort of thoughts? Just write it down in the comments. You'd be thinking about, I love it. Ice cream, sugar fix. Okay, whatever it is. So it could be family, could be children. It could be fun, entertainment, could be a good book, could be a movie show, could be TV series, could be anything. So when you're feeling a good emotion, that automatically impacts your thinking, automatically. So if we're going to control our thoughts, we've got to control our emotions. We must take charge of our emotions. Because when you take charge of your emotions, you automatically control your thinking, both your conscious and your unconscious thinking. And let me tell you this. It's not your conscious thoughts that you need to worry about. It's not the conscious thoughts that most determine the destiny of your life. It is the thoughts you don't know about, your unconscious thoughts. Ever thought about those thoughts before? What's happening below the surface of conscious thought? What are those thoughts? Those thoughts are, we know they're of survival. That's the purpose of it. But how do we control those thoughts? That's the key. That's the $1 million question. And you're going to control those thoughts through emotions. Through emotions. When you've got a good emotion in your body, you're going to have a good thought pop into your mind. When you have good emotions in your body, you're going to think happy thoughts. You're going to think empowering thoughts. Your thoughts will change by changing your emotions. Again, that's as far easier than just trying to do it through thought alone. It's the hardest way you can do it. Think about it this way. I'll go back to that in a moment. But let's think about a doorway. So we've got a doorway here. There's the handle. Now, if we grab that door and open the door, what we're going to look at is this. Think of the edge of the door. Now, when you open a door, the edge of the door moves quite a long distance. It can move several meters. If you think about the old doors of a cathedral, a big, massive building, those types of doors, those doors, can move on, they can move many meters. Some of them could move 10 meters, large doors that swing. However, notice that these doors move on little tiny hinges. So here you've got the hinges. And so when you open that door, the edge of the door certainly moves a long distance, but those hinges move a small amount. It's a tiny little movement of the hinge, tiny little movement to swing that big, vast door. And it doesn't matter how big the cathedral is, the hinges are still very small comparatively. And we're going to think about this in terms of our life. If you're trying to change your thoughts by thinking, you've got a long way to go. There is so much distance to cover. So think of the doorway this way. Think of destiny being the edge of the doorway right here. That's destiny. When you open that door, destiny moves the most. But then we move into habits or character, and then to habits. And then we move into actions. And then we move into thought. And then we move into emotions. Now, emotions, we're getting closer and closer to that hinge. You see, what I've been looking for in my life is the fastest way to make change. The fastest way. And it's not through thinking. So now we've got to get control of our thinking, and we do that through our emotions. Now, let me ask you this. What controls your emotions? What controls your emotions? The answer is your feelings. Your feelings. Now, a lot of people say, well, aren't feelings and emotions the same thing? No, they're different. You could say that every emotion is a feeling, but not every feeling is an emotion. For example, if you get punched in the arm or in the leg and you bruise, that's a feeling. That's not an emotion. If you have pressure, like a buildup, like you need to go to the bathroom, that's not an emotion. That's a feeling. If you have pressure inside your head, say as a result of stress, a lot of cortisol running through, there's the stress response, cortisol. And suddenly you've got this pounding headache. That's not an emotion. That's a feeling. Let's say you go to the fridge because you've got these hunger pains in your stomach. You have 200 nerve endings in your stomach. That's why we have so much trouble when it comes to food and diet. That's why our palate says eat more sugary junk food, because we're feeding our yeast and fungus infections. I know that sounds kind of crude, but that's what's happening. And so here we are, we're eating food because the nerve endings in your stomach are sending feelings and impressions to your body, to your mind, telling you that it's time to eat. That's a feeling. That's not an emotion. And so every emotion is a feeling, but not every feeling is an emotion. Just get that concept. Now, if we're going to change our emotions, the way we start is by changing our feelings. Our feelings affect our emotions. You see, if you're relaxed, feeling relaxed, it's easier to be at peace, to feel the emotion of peace. If you're feeling everything's okay, it's a lot easier to be excited because you've got no pain in your body. So if you're feeling pain-free and pressure-free, it's easy then to get excited. So it's easy then to create that emotion because your feelings are in support of that emotion. Does that make sense? So when you're feeling sick, it's hard to be happy, isn't it? When you're feeling sick, and this is probably the best example, who's been sick recently? Has anyone here had COVID? Just wondering, if you had COVID, just say yes, had COVID. So if anybody's had and been sick, then you know what it's like. How hard is it to feel good when you're sick? It's really difficult because you feel bad. And so your feelings affect your emotions. Your feelings affect your emotions. Critical for us to understand that. All right, next. How do we take charge of our feelings? This is where we get to the hinge. What we're looking at now is the hinge. You see, the large doors of life move on very small hinges. And these hinges are like our decisions that we make in life. You remember Alice in Wonderland? She's walking along and she comes to the Cheshire Cat. And she has a conversation with this cat. And the cat says, which way will you choose? There's a fork in the road. And Alice says, well, I don't know where I'm going. And the cat says, well, if you don't know where you're going, it doesn't matter which direction you choose. You had no destiny. That's why we need destiny. We need the destiny mapped out, but then we come back to the hinge. Once the destiny is there and we see it, we know what we want in our future, then we come back all the way to the hinge. And here's what the hinge is. You ready for this? I want you to know that what I'm sharing with you today took me years to work out. I never learned this until I was 40 years of age. Okay, so I'm giving you a shortcut to success. And I'm giving you, this is the best bit of content that I have, like in my repertoire. There's other bits of good content. But for changing your life, this is number one. So I want you to appreciate the value of this. This is everything. This is my soul bed. This is how to change your life and to get that hinge opening. Number one is physiology. You might say to me, Josh, that's just so simple. Physiology, your body. You see, every child in your life already knows this. Every dog in your life already knows this. You see, what does a dog do when you come home and the dog is excited? How do you know that dog's excited? Because that tail is wagging like crazy because of the physiology of that dog. How do you know when a child is happy? How do you know when a child's happy? Because they show it. It's expression. Several years ago, a friend of mine came over to my home, and I've got a pool down the back. It's a lovely big pool. He brought his children over, and one of his children, his name was Ash, he was only about 3 years old at the time. And Ash was standing there. I still remember him standing beside the pool, and his arms were swinging. Like, these were the biggest swinging arms I'd just about ever seen. And you could see glee all over his face. His arms are swinging like this energetically. He was just so happy. And Dad was there standing in the water with his arms up saying, jump. And this little boy jumped into his dad's loving arms, and his dad put him on the side again. He ran around, jumped in a second time and a third, and that was just the game they were playing. But it was so much fun. And you could see it in his body. You could see it in his arms. You could see it everywhere. He was living, fully living, expressing fully the energy and excitement that he was feeling in his body. Now, what happens as we get older? Let's say you go to granddad's house, or you go see an uncle or an aunt, and they are really happy. What happens when they're happy? They might do this. You ready? Is that it? Sometimes you do this. You're really happy and you're like, I'm happy on the inside. I'm happy inside. Does anybody feel that way? And sometimes you're just happy on the. So what happens is, over time, we forget to express ourselves. We forget to use our body. We forget to be like children. We forget to be like the dog even, who in some ways is able to get more juice out of life than some of us get. Who thinks their dog is happier than they are? And if your dog's happier than you are, then there's something you're doing wrong, because you should be happy. That's what we're here to be, happy. The whole purpose of life, I believe, is to learn to be happy. That's it. That's the purpose of life. Let's be happy. Let's choose it. Now, the way we choose it is we go to the hinge. We go to the hinge. And if I'm going to change my life, I'm not going to get a new destiny just by thinking about my destiny. Certainly, it's imperative that we do that. We set up a goal, we set up a vision, but then we've got to come all the way back to the hinge. And that hinge is your physiology, your body. Because what happens when you move your body? So if I get excited, and I do excitement quite regularly, I'll tell you a story actually, because in 2015, when I attended the seminar I was telling you about before, it was a 4-day seminar. It was called UPW, or Unlimited Power Within. And attending this seminar, I read a quote in the workbook. So they had a workbook at the beginning. I opened it up, started reading it. And there was one quote that stuck out to me. And this quote said that a man that's excited for a day, that's something. One that's excited for a week can produce something. But one that stays excited for 20 years, that man can change the world. And I read this and this just hit me. And I'm like, what is this? What does this quote actually mean? And then I asked myself the question, how could somebody possibly be excited for 20 years? I thought that's impossible. Like I was flat out at that time being excited for more than a few days. You'd sort of ramp up, get a bit excited about something. It'll last for a day or two. For some of us, it's only an hour or two, or maybe a minute or two, and then we're back down to our normal resting emotion. And this was a quote saying that you could do it for 20 years. Well, at first I didn't believe it. I thought impossible. There's no way. And then I learned something. I learned that I could actually make a decision to move that hinge. I could make a decision with my emotions. And so from that time, I put it to the test and I thought, well, I'm going to try this. I'm going to experiment. And that's what we need to do. You and I, we need to experiment. When you learn something, learn some information, experiment. Put it to practice in your life. That's how you know if it works, not by listening to somebody else, by me or anyone. It'll only work if it's going to work when you do it. And then you know. You develop what's called your own testimony. Once you've got your own testimony, you know it. You don't have to rely on somebody else to tell you something. You now have it because it's inside you. It's part of you. So I'll tell you what I did. I came home from this seminar, and the next morning I woke up and I went for a run up the mountain. And on top of the mountain, I just got excited. I just practiced excitement. I now call it an excitement exercise. And here's how it looks. And you might think it's a bit funny. You might think it looks a bit strange, but I'll tell you the results in a moment. But here's what I did. I counted to 3. 1, 2, 3. And then I would just do this. Yes, yes, yes. Now that looks strange, yes? But that's what I did. Now there was nothing to get excited about. I hadn't just won the lotto. I wasn't going to be a grandfather like in a week's time. There was, I just had a new baby. There was nothing exciting that happened. Nothing. I got excited for no reason. For no reason, just because I could. Now, if the light bulb doesn't go off there for you, it should. Because you can master your emotions. Did you get that? You can master your emotions. That's the big key here. Now, how do you master your emotions? Well, it's not through our thoughts. We can think about being positive. We can think about being happy, but that's not the hinge. It's going to take more work, more effort than needs to. So let's get to the hinge. Let's change our physiology. Who's ever heard of power poses? If you've heard of power poses, just say yes. I've heard of power poses. If you haven't heard of power poses, you're about to learn something about power poses. So let's have a look at power poses. Operations are often run in hospital by surgeons. And that surgeon that's about to do that operation needs a high level of confidence and they need a high level of competence. They've got to be able to do the job. So they went to school, they went and did the study, they went to medical school, they practiced, and now here they are performing an operation. Now, in performing their operation, they need confidence and competence. Now, how do they get it? Well, they get competence through doing the work and doing the study. But how do you get confidence? You see, confidence is nothing more than an emotion. It's an emotional state. So what surgeons do, many of them, is they go into what's called a power pose. Now, a power pose, if you think of Superman, or if you think of Wonder Woman, or you think of one of the superheroes in the Marvel comics, a power pose is simply a way that you stand, which is very powerful. So what it would be is back straight, shoulders back, chin up, breathing nice and deep, and looking slightly up. Now, it could be hands on the hips like this, or it could be one arm up like Superman, or two arms up like Superman flying through the sky. That's a power pose. So what surgeons have found is if they do this power pose, they're able to get more confidence in their ability to perform the needed operation. And wouldn't you want a very confident person working on you? If your body was open and you've got somebody working on a part of your body, you would hope that they're extremely competent and extremely confident. You would want both. And so by standing in a power pose for 2 minutes, a woman named Amy Cuddy has actually done the science on this. What they've discovered is phenomenal. They've discovered that just by doing a 2-minute power pose, a person can increase the testosterone in their body by as much as 20% in just 2 minutes. Now, that's incredible. I don't know about you, but that's phenomenal. Think about that. If you increase the testosterone in your body by 20%, and then you had to perform something or do something, let's say you've got to public speak or you've got to do a task in your job, in your profession, whatever that is, who wouldn't want more confidence while you're doing that? Who would feel better if they were more confident? Let's say you were wanting to date a person or you wanted to approach someone of the opposite sex. Would you want to be confident in that approach? So there's many different applications for this, many different applications. But the idea is a power pose creates confidence in your body just by standing in a power pose. Okay, now, I'm just going to just tell you about this. We're going to do it. So the first thing I'd like everyone to do is stand up. So stand up wherever you are. We're going to actually do this together. We've got time today to do this. In many of my seminars, they go for 1 hour, maybe 1.5 hours. Today, we've got 4 hours. We can actually do it. We can actually start getting you the results and the change right here, right now. So go ahead and stand in a confident way. Now, I can't see everyone's camera, but I assume you're standing. If you're not standing, please stand. Stand up. Don't just pretend to stand up. Don't just stand up in your mind, because that's just using your thoughts. That's using your thinking. We've got to go to the hinge. The hinge of change is decisions, and the hinge of change is also physiology. So let's use our body. Let's use our physiology. So the first thing is you got to decide, am I Superman or am I Wonder Woman? So might be on the hips like this. Chest out, back straight, looking up. Make sure you're looking up. So stand in a way that you're extremely confident. Now, here's another way that can generate this level of confidence. Ready? So keep standing like that. We're going to do it for 2 minutes. Think about a time in your life where you felt extremely confident. Think about a situation, a circumstance, or event in your life where you felt completely confident. Think about a specific time. Go back to that time. See what you saw, hear what you heard, and feel the feelings of confidence in your body right now. Go ahead and feel those feelings. Now, to elevate that, just simply stand a bit taller. Put a big smile on your face. That's it. Bigger the smile. Get your arm up. I like it. I can see a super person power pose. We're going to be genetically accurate here. Okay, so whatever it is, keep holding that position. Keep holding a big smile on your face. Powerful, strong. So think about another time where you wanted something really bad. Can you think about a time where you wanted something really bad and you got it? You wanted it and you got it. So think about that. I can see some nods there. Think about the time you wanted it. You wanted it so bad and you got it. So get to that powerful position and replay that scene in your mind where you wanted it, you went after it, you got it. Perhaps it was a love interest. Perhaps it was a car that you wanted or a house, or perhaps it was moving home. Perhaps it was a job that you wanted. Just go back to that time and see yourself. You wanted it and you nailed it. You achieved it. You got it. You did it. You did that. You created that. And notice how good that feels. Now, what you can do is you can amplify it. Just imagine now, like those old TVs, how you reach out and they've got all those round dials on them, one for the volume and one for the vertical pitch and all those things. Just imagine there's a volume switch out there that represents your emotion of confidence. I want you to reach out and grab that dial and I want you to turn it up. So double it. And notice what happens in your body. Notice there's a corresponding shift. Keep turning it. Keep turning it. Elevate that feeling of confidence. That feeling so it's so big, it's so strong, it's so powerful that you feel like you could single-handedly take on the world. That's the ability that you have. That's your superpower, is that dreams are free and you are only limited by your own imagination. You are only limited by this. And you can feel good for no good reason. Now, here's what I want you to do. Put one hand on your heart. One hand on your heart and feel that feeling of confidence. And with your other hand, reach out and imagine there's a picture in front of you. I'm talking about like a picture on the wall, like this picture in a frame. Just reach out and touch that picture. Now, that picture represents that feeling of confidence. So just imagine that picture equals the confidence. Now, go ahead and take both hands and trace it so I know how big the picture is. Is it a big picture, a little picture? Okay, now grab the edges of that picture. Grab the edges of the picture. Now, you ready for this? Because he's going to feel a whole lot better. Now, what I want you to do is make the picture twice as big and notice what happens in your body. Notice what happens to the feeling. The feeling of confidence. Is it getting bigger? Stretch it out, stretch it out. Now make it big like an IMAX cinema. So throw it out like an IMAX, like a surround cinema that's massive, and notice how good that feels. Is that getting better? Is it getting bigger? Now bring it small, like a little tiny postage stamp, little small stamp. Bring it small. What happened to the feeling? What happened to the feeling of confidence? Did it get smaller? Now crunch it up and throw it over your head. Where'd it go? Is that feeling there? Or is it gone? Now imagine that you've got all the power to bring that back. So go ahead, put your hands up, and using like your Star Wars Jedi Knight ability, we're going to use the Force and we're going to drag that back. So drag that postage stamp back and grab it again, unfold it, stretch it out. Now this time, now that it's big like this, grab that picture and I want you to pull it over your head, all the way down to your feet, and then back in front of you again. Now do it again. And notice on every pass, it just gets stronger and stronger. Notice how good that feels. Who's feeling that? You go faster and faster, faster and faster. Now grab it, stretch it out, and imagine it's like a big blanket. Wrap it around yourself like a big blanket. Wrap it around like a big blanket. Wonderful, wonderful. Grab a seat. Grab a seat. Let's hear in the comments. Let's hear in the comments. What did you feel? What are you aware of? What did you learn from that experience? So go ahead and chat in the comments. And I wouldn't mind someone to do a little bit of sharing. Like if somebody's happy to do a little bit of a sharing, how did you feel about that experience? I know Sharon was involved. I saw Kay up doing it. I saw Andrea, thank you so much, and Tanya. Those that I was able to see were up actually doing it. And I hope that each of you at home were also physically doing it. Just drop a yes in the comments if you felt the changes, if you could feel that this emotion was being augmented according to your imagination. Who felt that? Who felt that if I do this with it, if I push it out further, pull it closer, wrap it around myself, throw it behind. It's all changed. That's the ability you have. Wonderful, wonderful. So everyone got a lot of yeses there. Wonderful, wonderful. So who had a particularly big experience that they'd like to share? Who had a particularly, was like, whoa, this is amazing. Who had one of those? Let me know. Hands up.